if you are just listing your simple job responsibilities, it's not really telling anything about your unique abilities. It just reads like a job description. And that doesn't get me excited to talk to you. That doesn't make me want to know anything about what you bring to the table as an individual. Hey, everybody. We are talking about one of my favorite topics for this episode, and that is midlife professionals that are thinking of making some type of career shift. I do this with private clients all the time. They come to me and they say, "Hey, I think I want to do something different, but I don't know where to start." And one of the places that we feel most comfortable making the first move is by updating our resumes. So, this entire episode, I'm giving you my tips, my do's and don'ts for how midlife professionals can update their resumes. And we're going to jump right into it. Let's talk about the don'ts. Let's talk about all the things that we shouldn't be doing as midlife professionals, because it's very possible that the last time you were on any kind of job search, it was a while ago and things have updated quite a bit. I can say for myself, with my first phase of my career, I was in that particular season for 20 something years. So the types of ways that I initially got into the field was by me having a paper copy of my resume that I physically handed to a recruiter across the desk, and they talked to me right then about what my skills were, what my job aspirations were. And it's just not like that anymore. Most of the job search process is digital. It is going to be very faceless. It's going to be very automated. And you've got to know what are the things that you need to have on your resume that's going to make somebody or make a system pull you, flag your resume from the thousands or at least the hundreds that they're going to be getting for any particular job role. So let's start off with the things that I wouldn't do as a midlife professional updating my resume. First thing is that I don't want you to have your resume list simple job responsibilities. Now, why is that? You're probably scratching your head. It's like, hey, a resume is all about my job responsibilities. Yes, it is. But if you are just listing your simple job responsibilities, it's not really telling anything about your unique abilities. It just reads like a job description. And that doesn't get me excited to talk to you. That doesn't make me want to know anything about what you bring to the table as an individual. So I would make sure, if I'm looking at a job description, a job posting, and then I look at my resume and they kind of look the same, they are very bland, very black and white, doesn't sound like there's a human being behind that story at all, then it's probably a good guess that you are just listing job responsibilities. So, what one other thing that I would like you to think about is, if you are looking at your resume and you're not able to say, what is it that I bring to the table from this? If you're not even able to recognize yourself in that story, then you probably have left something out. So let's go on to the second don't. The second don't that I would say for your resume as a midlife professional is going to be not using passive terminology with the way you've listed your work experience. And what does that mean by passive? When you're saying things like something was done to you or you were just there to carry out a particular duty, that's passive language that doesn't show that you've made an impact. I would say that if you've got all these years of experience, like myself, I'm in my fifth decade of life, and I've got about 30 years of work experience, under my belt. I'm going to have a lot of stories to tell. And along my journey as a professional, I've probably done some really cool things. I've probably created some new processes. Maybe there's a team or two that I've led and we were able to accomplish some really cool things. I need to be able to talk about how I was impactful in that role. I need to be able to say how I took charge of something, how I led something, how I pioneered something. Those types of words are more dynamic than just saying that I did XYZ for 15 years or I was responsible for XYZ in this particular role. You've got one that's very passive and one that's very dynamic, and I want you to be in the dynamic realm. Okay? Now, the third don't that I would say is when you're looking back on your work history, you want to make sure that you keep it concise. Now, again, look at myself as an example. Again, in my 50s, and I'm looking backwards on 3 decades of work experience. If I'm putting whatever on my resume, I'm not putting 30 years worth of work experience because what I did at 25 is no longer relevant. Those skills are outdated from what I'm trying to look for at 55 or 52 or 45 or whatever. So, what I want you to think about is making sure that your work experience is concise down to the most recent 10 to 12 years of relevant work experience. Now, again, using myself as an example, I was a lifelong educator, was in a school district for 23 years of my career. What I did in the first part of my career as a history teacher, those skills may not be relevant for the types of roles that I'm looking for right now, which is more towards technology or podcasting. Haha. Those types of skills are going to be with things that I've developed within the last 10 years, really within the last 2 years, to be honest. So I'm going to make sure that my resume, if those are the types of jobs that I'm looking for, then I want to make sure that I highlight that in my resume because it's going to position me best for the types of roles, the shift that I'm trying to make in my career. Okay. So those are the 3 don'ts so far. Now let's talk about some of the things that I want you to do, some of the things that I want you to really take some care to have updated in your resume. And the first thing that I want to say is that you are telling the story of your achievements. You know, if you have looked back on your career and you're just talking about, okay, I don't have anything to brag on, or I'm a very humble person, or I don't like drawing a lot of attention to myself. I say very quickly that while you're job searching, that is not the time to be humble. I want you to go back and look at all of the things that you would say are your highlight reel. What are the big things that you've done? What are the things that you're the most proud of? That if we had to put that on the billboard of your life, that would be what you would point to and say, yeah, I did that. That's how you need to look at your resume. It should be a listing of your career highlights, and it should be relevant career highlights. So as you're thinking about, like myself, started out as a history teacher, now I'm doing, what you're looking at right now. I'm here producing this podcast. These are 2 different skill sets. I am still, in front of an audience, but you're not a bunch of ninth graders. You're way beyond that. So my message is going to be different. The things that I'm trying to achieve are different. So make sure that you think about what is the role, what is the shift that I'm trying to make, and then what are the achievements that make me most attractive for those types of roles, and keep that where your most recent 10 to 12 years of experience is going to go into your resume. And I know that we look at things that we've done across the span of 20, 30 years, and we just really want to hold on to that. We have an emotional attachment to it. If there's a way to work it into the story, then okay. But a good rule of thumb is the most recent 10 to 12 years. Now, what I will also say is when you are highlighting your career achievements, my next do is that you've got to be able to measure them. You can't just tell me that you're a fabulous person. You can't just tell me that you're a hard worker. If you're trying to get the attention of a recruiter or any organization that you want to get a job with or have a partnership with, you want to be able to say that you did something and you put a number to it. If you are able to show how you made money, saved money, or saved time for any organization, those are the types of things that I want you to highlight. So if you're, say, in sales, and you can say that you increased revenue from 2003 to 2002, or, well, I just totally messed that up, from 2002 to 2003, and it was a revenue increase of 10%. That's a measurable achievement. If you're able to tell me that you were able to cut cost by 10%, that's a measurable achievement. If you tell me that you were somehow able to create a new process that saved every team member an hour's worth of time every single week, that's a measurable achievement because we're able to put a number to whatever it is that you're, telling the story about. That is a big deal. And those numbers, if you don't even know where to look, I would suggest go back into your performance reviews for your organization and see what are the things that you're being measured for right now. What are the things that you're supposed to accomplish within whatever time frame for your company? And just see, did you hit those numbers? Did you hit those metrics? If you did, then that's something that you want to include in your resume. Those are the types of things that we can say, hey, I'm the person that, was the top salesperson for the quarter, or I was the, person that was able to lead the team with this new process that has now gone company wide. Those are the types of measurable achievements that I want you to include in your resume. The other thing that I'll tell you about is as you're going through your work history, remember, we're trying to keep it down to the most recent 10 to 12 years of relevant work experience. So as you go through, all of the different companies that you've worked for in that amount of time, you're going to have a section for company A, company B, company C. In each of those sections of your work history, let's keep it to about 5 to 7 bullets max. And within those 5 to 7 bullets, I still want them to tell the story of your impact that you made while you were with that organization. If it's not telling the whole story of who you were and the value that you brought to that company, then you need to rethink it. Maybe it's something that you really got to dig deep and reevaluate. Because again, we don't want it to just sound like a bunch of job responsibilities. We want it to tell the story of your achievements. And while you're doing that, 5 to 7 bullets per section for your work history. Make sure that we can try to keep everything down. I keep doing this gesture right here about bringing it in, bringing it to be more concise and to fit it within about 2 pages of space. And I know you're probably clutching your pearls right now because you're just like, I can't fit all of my work history on just 2 pages. Well, that is the challenge because there is no recruiter that wants to sit through 5, 6, 7 pages of your resume, period. As a matter of fact, it's very possible that they're only going to read the very top half of the first page anyway. So we want to make sure that we have as much chunky, meaty information in that first part of your resume above everything else. So what you want to, if you're looking at it from top to bottom on your page, you want to make sure that all of your contact information is at the very top of the page. If there is going to be your name, your email address, your LinkedIn information, all of that needs to be at the very top so they know exactly who it is that they're looking at. And then going straight into your value proposition, which is telling us who you are and what are the fabulous strengths, skills, talents that you bring to the table. Then you go into your most relevant work experience. And from there, it's very possible that the recruiter is not going to go any further than that. So we want to make sure that the biggest chunk of important information is at the very top of the page. And then from there, we don't go more than 2 pages. And if you do some of the tips that I'm giving you right now, I'm pretty confident that you won't need more than 2 pages of real estate anyway. But the very last bit of advice, the biggest do that I will say that you need to make sure you take this final step when you are updating your resume is make sure that you always write a cover letter to accompany your resume. Now, why am I telling you this? Who's going to care about the cover letter if they're only looking at the very top of your resume anyway? Well, the people that are going to take a look at it is the recruiter. And this is another space where you are able to tell in a narrative form, basically in, regular written paragraphs, who you are and what makes you special. In that cover letter, I will tell you it is another place where you are able to just expand a little bit more on what you are seeking in the job role, what talents you are able to contribute to the organization, and it is another place where other people usually don't go that extra step. And remember, the whole point is that you're trying to stand out to recruiters. So I would say by creating that cover letter, sending it and addressing it to the recruiter that is responsible for filling that job position, that is the extra step that most people don't take. So right out of the gates, you are going to stand out from the hundreds of people that are competing against you for that particular job role. So if you do that, it's very, very possible that you're going to at least make a connection with that recruiter. And from there, you can, talk yourself up in the interview process, talking to the hiring managers, all that jazz. But the whole point is that you want to stand out from all of the other resumes that are being submitted for that particular job role. And if you do these things, hey, it's going to build up your confidence over and over again as you get into this job search journey. And as a midlifer, you have a lot of advantages over someone that might be brand new to the job force. So instead of being intimidated as a midlife professional that's making a career shift, I want you to instead say, hey, I'm one of the veterans, I'm one of the OGs here, and I've got a lot of great stories to tell. And when you're not shy about saying who you are and why you're valuable, then it becomes a little bit more of an enjoyable experience. So I will tell you that if you have, thought about all of the tips that I've given you here in this episode and something is resonating with you, maybe you tried it out and it's working, I would really love to hear from you in the comments. Let me know if maybe there's something that I've missed, because I'm always looking for good tips, especially someone like me. I'm looking for my next opportunity every time. So all of us are here to learn and to grow, and let's make sure that we are successful together. But I will tell you that you can also see information in the show notes for a course where I teach all of this information to my clients. It is an actual course about how to begin the job search process as a midlife professional. We're going to include the link and check it out. Let me know if you would like to work with me one-on-one with your midlife career pivot. I would love to hear from you. And I thank you for being here for this episode of the Melanated Midlife Podcast. If you want to share this with a buddy, do so. But more than ever, like and subscribe so you can always be in the know with more tips and more midlife lessons that we have to share. So thanks again, y'all. We'll check in next week.